Hello, hello. We are back. It is another live stream on the Sports Card Dad YouTube channel. I am really excited about this one. I just hung out with Brian out in Chicago a few days ago, but today we've got President of REA, Brian Dwyer, joining us to talk about the July-August catalog auction. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, thanks, Dustin. Good to see you last week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a spectacle, that show. I've only been to 3 nationals before the show came on. You mentioned that you've been to 18. So actually, let's just first dive in, I guess, to your thoughts on it and then maybe the evolution since you started kind of getting into that show in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore how big the national is nowadays. You know, I was telling people I've been to 18 shows. Many of them have been in that Chicago Donald Stevens Center. And I didn't even know that there was a side room. But, you know, they filled up every square foot of that place. I heard 600,000 square feet. And when I walked around on Sunday, which, you know, the show had been going on for 5 days, I was really encouraged and happy to see that that room was still packed and people were still in there spending money and, you know, busting boxes and having fun. And so ultimately, that's what we all want to see out of this biggest trade show of the year.
Do you ever have people, and I just assume people that might not go to a card show, maybe they go to that one in particular, but do you ever have people walk up and try to buy items, not understanding that they're a part of the auction? Because I would think that there's some big money folks that would just probably walk up and say, like, what is this run? You know?
100%. Yeah. So we get that all the time. We've actually had to change our signage show after show, year after year to kind of hammer home the point that these items are up for auction. But, you know, it's great for us to be there and just get dialogue with collectors, whether they're clients of ours or not. There are a lot of big money buyers that come to that show. I think dealers, from what I've heard in the last 72 hours, had a great show for sales in Rosemont last week. And, you know, we are always trying to sign people up if they're not already one of our bidders. So what might start as a conversation to buy something straight up turns into hopefully a long bidding relationship.
Now, what about on the other side? Do you have folks that obviously they probably have heard of the name, but that come up to the national and maybe ask you about consignment? They've got this item or that item. Do you field a lot of those types of questions at the show, or is it something that maybe they're nervous to come up face to face? They come to you after the show. How does that typically go?
It takes all forms. So we have a lot of stuff that we line up in advance, and then we all plan on meeting at the show, you know, sometimes doing a transaction face-to-face or seeing an item in person and maybe getting it graded or getting it authenticated. Then we have a lot of people that just walk into the show, you know, their goal is to talk to 10 people like us. And then I always say that the national for us, and I'm sure for many other auction companies, the national is a show that has a long tail on it. And so we're going to make relationships here. We're going to meet clients for the first time, and we might not get a consignment from them for 6 months or 12 months or 10 years. Sometimes, you know, we're still getting consignments that were born out of relationships at the first show we ever set up at. So it's just great to be among collectors, whatever form it takes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I always kind of wonder on your end too, how much of the business, how much of the flow is, you know, brand new people, and then how much is it just, you know, collectors you've been working with over a decade or something or longer, and they just kind of piecemeal it to, you know, like give you little bits at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of REA's specialties is bringing fresh material to the hobby. And so we had a lot of stuff come up to our booth at the show this year in Chicago that's never been seen before, that has been passed down through families, that is entirely fresh to the hobby, and sometimes hiding in the most unsuspecting of places. So that's what's fun. You know, you never know what's going to be in somebody's bag. You never know what's going to be on the other end of a phone call or an email. And that's why we keep doing what we do.
That's the thing that kind of strikes me is I feel like, and maybe it's just because, you know, you see the news every day, but it feels like there's always some new collection that's discovered that has amazing stuff in it, you know, vintage stuff. Is that real that, you know, these new collections keep popping up, or is it just that it seems that way if there's a handful a year or something of Honus Wagner's or something that pop out of nowhere?
No, you know, stuff is definitely still showing up, still being discovered. I think we'll get into one of the most exciting discoveries in recent times here shortly. But yeah, I mean, we are every day fielding calls from collectors who were opening packs themselves in the 50s and 60s, or families of those collectors where these cards have been just hidden in a shoebox for decades and they've never seen the light. And that's exciting for us. That's exciting. We just had a grade pop today, 53 tops Clemente, got a PSA 7, or excuse me, 50
Oh, wow.
Jackie Robinson,
Mm.
got a 7, and a 55 tops Clemente got a 6. These are cards that had been in a shoebox literally up until 2 weeks ago. So stuff is definitely still out there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right. So you guys have some big news recently, a big acquisition. Let's talk about Huggins and Scott. How did it all transpire?
Yeah. So unfortunately, one of the driving factors of this acquisition was the passing of Bill Huggins, the founder of Huggins and Scott. So Bill Huggins had been in the hobby for decades. Set up at the very first national, set up at card shows in the 70s, opened up a store in Maryland in the late 70s. And Bill, about 30 years ago, started in the auction business. And he formed Huggins and Scott. They had a great niche in the business. They were big in the DC, Baltimore area. They sold a lot of regionals. They sold a lot of raw cards. They sold a lot of sets. Got some great collections over the years. And Bill unexpectedly passed away in February of this year. And so REA was able to get with the Huggins family, and the Huggins family sought out REA, frankly, and make the best of a bad situation. Bill had great employees. He had many, many, many thousands of clients and customers that counted on him. And we're excited to add Huggins and Scott to our brand. So they've actually got an auction going on right now as we speak. It ends here in a couple hours. So very thrilled, excited about what we can do with them, but a lot of similarities between Huggins and REA. Been around for decades, trusted, bring great material into the hobby, knowledgeable employees. So we're excited to see what we can do.
So are you guys thinking of integrating Huggins and Scott into REA, keeping it separate, or bring it into the REA kind of, umbrella? So it's just kind of like one giant REA, or just multiple, REA auctions, or does it stay its own name? And have you guys decided on that yet?
Yeah, so for the time being, we're going to run it as its own business. We think it's got a great name. We think that it serves a different part of the market than maybe REA is known for, and so we're going to explore what that looks like to, give it a little bit of operational help, give it a little bit of technological help, give it some financial resources, and consignor incentives and advances that REA has been known for a long time. And then the other interesting thing is that they do coins and comics, which REA really doesn't do much of. So see what we can learn in those areas, and ultimately just make the best group of auctions for our clients.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you guys have? Is it, as far as just kind of strategy goes, you don't necessarily have to give all the behind the scenes secrets, but it's obviously a very well known, reputable vintage shop. You all, not that you don't have modern things as well, but there's just all sorts of unbelievable vintage stuff. Is there a one, I guess, to get dive into more of the modern, ultra modern style stuff as well? And you also just mentioned coins and comics, or is it kind of like you guys are just solid in your lane, and when those things come up, great?
Yeah, so I think that REA's strength has always been staying true to its core, but as we saw last week at the national, the hobby's changing, and REA's reputation and kind of casting came out of the early 90s, when really the only thing that was valuable were vintage cards.
Right.
REA ran its first auction in 1993. So as the hobby changes, we're changing with it. We're selling more Pokemon. We're selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We're selling stuff from all major sports and non-sports. And that's the goal. The hobby is changing. REA wants to change with it. We've done a great job for decades. Want to keep it going for a couple more decades at least.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's dive in a little bit here. Let's pull up some of these monsters that you all are offering. Unbelievable. Where do I even start? Okay. Actually, you know what? We're going to start with Tiger Woods, modern.
Yep. Modern and non-baseball. So great place to start.
I know. Yeah, we're going to bounce around a little bit. Keep it. We're going to stay nimble here. So we've got the 2001 Upper Deck SP Authentic Stars Tiger autographed rookie. It's numbered out of 900. This is one I would love to have, a really nice Tiger Woods autograph. And man, it feels like over the last few years, the pricing has moved up dramatically on these.
Without a doubt. I think anybody that's been in the hobby for a long time has these coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but this is a card that I look at. My first national was 2003. And I'm sure it wasn't cheap then, but it was cheaper, I would wager to say. And so I look back on this card, this example, 1010, card grade, auto grade, just an iconic golf card, really, of
Yep.
arguably one of the greatest players, if not the greatest golfer ever to play the game. So I love this card. We were really stoked when we got it in. And, it's already off to a hot start, 26 different bids here. I think people are excited to see it.
And the auction ends August 13th. I have that right?
Yep. So you've got 10 more days to get your bids in. And if you're not registered, go to robertedwardauctions.com, sign up. And if you are registered, you're free to go in and place your bids.
All right. We're moving over. We're out of golf and we're to Star Wars now.
Yeah.
Star Wars. So we've got a near complete set. But the big thing is that you've got these, I mean, they're in PSA 10 holders.
Yeah. This is a true labor of love. We actually have an interview with the collector that put this set together on our website. So we have a consigner stories page where we tell some of the interesting stories behind these consignments. And this is a great one. He saw the movies when he was growing up, fell in love with them, made a little money, and then put together this incredibly high grade set. So what you have here is a starter set, basically 262 of the 330. And if you really feel motivated, all the missing cards are presented individually in this auction. So you've got a Luke Skywalker PSA 10, you've got R2-D2, Han Solo, all these guys presented in PSA 10 grade on their own. So you could walk away in 10 days with one of the best Star Wars sets ever made.
Unreal. Global has a question here. Is this available globally? I believe that Alex is in Australia. Is open to international bidders?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have clients in more than 24 countries. We just signed up somebody from Sweden and Philippines within the last couple of days. So yeah, love international bidders and happy to get you signed up on robertedwardauctions.com if you're not already.
I have to admit, this is not exactly something that I thought I was going to see on here. We just talked about it earlier, but you guys, you've got it all. You have modern as well. So here we are, or almost modern, I should say, 1996 Pokemon Japanese base set sealed booster box. This is pre-first edition, the 99 stuff. What do you have to say about this one, Brian?
This is cool. I mean, this is something where, it's funny to think 96 is vintage in the Pokemon world, but this is great. This has a cool story with it. One of our big baseball collectors and consigners called and said, "Hey, I've got this thing, bought it for my daughter, almost 30 years ago. She's getting ready to buy a house, kept it tucked away. What do you know about it?" And we were very happy to tell him that it was pretty special. And the fact that he had never opened it for one reason or another was extra special and extra good. And here you got 21 bids, 10 days left, already at $20,000. And these normally go for 30, 35,000. So still some room to run, but really cool. Only issued in Japan. So it's a really special piece.
The thing that is just boggles my mind a little bit about Pokemon is you just mentioned it. Vintage Pokemon is basically the 90s. So, yeah. But you have kind of a window of Pokemon that is really kind of the top stuff, 96 to 99. And I'm not a Pokemon expert, but it's just amazing to me how they continuously bring out so many new sets and they just sell out of it. They're printing a lot of Pokemon still today, and it's highly collectible because there's not even serial numbered cards. So it's not even as if you have kind of a flipping element to it. I know a lot of speculators hold on to sealed boxes and that sort of thing, but it's amazing, this sort of stuff and just kind of the trajectory.
Yeah. I mean, these trading card games, whether it's Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering. I mean, if you've been following the news, you see Post Malone just paid reportedly more than $2 million for a rare Magic the Gathering card. But we have someone on our staff that's knowledgeable in these areas, started getting us some Yu-Gi-Oh consignments. So, again, just changing with the hobby and realizing that for a lot of people, the hobby is Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, or here you've got Horrors of War cards going back to the 30s.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about this because we had this on the list to talk about. And I was like, man, I want to learn a little bit more about this set because it's 1938. So it's not, I've seen a lot of this, sort of stuff that's right around World War II, kind of leading up. And this is obviously it's leading up, but it's a little before kind of the real wild stuff. What can you tell us about Horrors of War?
Yeah, so Horrors of War is widely considered to be one of the most iconic and famous of non-sports sets ever produced. So yes, to your point, this precedes World War II, which means that some of the imagery that we see in this set would be considered taboo and unbelievable today. I mean, there's some very violent images. There's some images of pre-World War II leaders that, we know much more today. But in the 30s, Horrors of War, 288 cards, really became a landmark set. And here you've got the number 4 set ever built, averages X mint or better. And it's off to a good start, but this is something that we expect will go up multiples of where it's at right now.
Are there other sets similar to this? I guess what I mean is this the first of the Horrors of War sets? Are there more of these, or is there something in particular about this one?
Well, so I mean, there's only one Horrors of War set, but I think
okay.
this was an incredibly large set for the time. It was an incredibly ornately detailed artwork for the time. But yeah, through the late 30s and early 40s, you have non-sports cards that do tell the story of war. You have Uncle Sam,
Okay.
you have home defense and Marines and U.S. Navy sets, and so you kind of see world happenings depicted on the front of trading cards, and now they've become pretty iconic.
Yeah, that was one. And I'm sure there's a lot of people are like, Dustin, how do you not know about that set? But that was one that popped up where I was like, huh, that's interesting. I don't know a lot about that one. So it's cool. This is one that is fairly common. I have a painting on my back wall that my mother-in-law painted for me for this one. So we'll move over to hockey. The classic 79-80 O-Pee-Chee, not the tops, the O-Pee-Chee, the more rare version, a nice 8.
Yeah, so I mean, whether you're a hockey collector or not, you know Wayne Gretzky, and certainly if you're in the card world, you know that the O-Pee-Chee Gretzky is kind of on that Mount Rushmore of hockey cards.
Yeah.
Funny, I actually own an O-Pee-Chee Gretzky in an 8, and this one blows mine away. So O-Pee-Chee cards are known for print issues. They're known for fish eyes and print dots, and they're known for being off center. The edges, O-Pee-Chee has rough cut edges. This one has a minor rough cut to it. I actually like the rough cut, but the centering, the registration, the print clarity on this make it a very, very nice 8. And I'd be very curious, because I own one, to see what it goes for.
Yeah, no, that's just a classic card. The colors and everything on it, and obviously the GOAT for hockey. It's a must have. I did own a Topps copy. Eventually, I would like to get into a O-Pee-Chee because they're awesome.
Well, you got a good one right there. So
yeah, absolutely. I pulled up all of these. So we've got 51 Bowman Mantle rookies. I'm showing 6 here, and the highest grade that you all have, it looks like, is the 8.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is a card that when you talk about print variation and print quality and centering and print lines and fish eyes, 51 Bowman Mantle comes to mind as well. They're often found off center. They're often found with a horizontal print line through his nameplate or through his face. In the cap, you can see registration issues that are sometimes make it look three-dimensional. This 8's pretty much all there. It's a great looking card. It is the highest graded one that we have in this auction. But if you don't have the $400,000 or more that this one will take, we've got some lesser graded examples that present pretty well for their grades also.
Do you happen to know, not to catch you off guard, but how many 10s of this card there might be? I probably should have looked up before we came on, but I was just curious there's probably one or something.
I was going to say, I think there's at least one, but
if chat knows, that would be great. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Probably one, maybe 2.
Yeah. That's an incredible copy. All right. This is the biggie. All right. We got the biggie here. Can you see it on the screen?
Oh yeah.
Man, oh man. Okay, so this was one actually, I want to learn more about this card because this is, well, you speak to it, Brian. I mean, this is one of the headliners of the auction.
Yeah, so we lead off the auction here, lot number 1. And when you asked earlier if stuff's still hiding, I mean, this was hiding for over 110 years. Great story about it, and I'll get into the background of what makes it so rare and desirable. But the same family had passed these cards, about 1,000 of these cards down through generations. And nobody really, they looked for the Honus Wagner, but beyond that, they didn't really poke around too much. And it wasn't until the pandemic got somebody in the family doing some sleuthing where they Googled the most valuable T206 cards, and they find that there's Wagner, and then there's Eddie Plank, but then there's also a guy named Joe Doyle. And Joe Doyle is not going to raise eyebrows for any baseball fan, serious or casual, really. But in the T206 world and in the card collecting world, this card is only the 10th example confirmed to exist. And what that variation is on the bottom of the card, on the nameplate, you'll see it says Doyle, New York National. And there's two Doyles in the set. You have Joe Doyle and you have Larry Doyle. And the printer mixed up their nameplate. And they pictured Joe Doyle with New York Nationals and Larry Doyle with New York Americans. And they should have been swapped. And so they caught the error and, presumably destroyed the printing plate, destroyed whatever was out there. But to date, we know of 10 examples that are floating around. And this is the 10th, totally newly discovered, fresh to the hobby within the last couple months.
Wow.
And you can see, $525,000 already, 10 days to go. This should be a 7-figure card. There's history that supports that. This is the highest graded example. So we're excited for a number of different reasons. And we're happy to be able to tell the family that found it that instead of being a $20 common, it's potentially $1 million variation.
That's unbelievable. It's like the original error card. I remember like in '89 Pro Set Football, you'd have the random or the Frank Thomas no name or something. It's unbelievable. The difference in price, the premium, is incredible. Is this somebody you think that buys this that is trying to complete a set, and this is kind of like the variation that's sitting out there that they don't have, or is it more of just the mystique behind the card, or maybe it's a combination?
Yeah. So, I believe that this card will go to a set builder. I think the premium is so great that you need to be able to stick it into your set of 524 T206s. The Wagner is a card that more often might go to somebody that's not a set builder, wants the allure, the rarity, the prestige of the card. But I think that everybody that's bidding on this, and likely whoever walks away with it, is somebody that really understands the rarity, appreciates the history, and then tucks it into their T206 set.
That is wild. That's a really cool card. All right, we're flipping back to hockey. Another card that I want to learn more about is this 1911 C55 Imperial Tobacco. Georges Vezina?
George Vezina.
George Vezina. Okay. Tell us about this one.
Great card, iconic, understated, underrated hockey card. So dates to that same time period as the T206 we were just looking at. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think that hockey cards, kind of like basketball cards, started in the early 50s. Basketball, 48 Bowman's your first set that you're thinking about. 51 Parkhurst hockey you might be thinking about. But there's 3 sets issued by Imperial Tobacco in the 1910 era that feature players of the day. And Vezina's a Hall of Famer. They name a trophy for best, I think, goaltender after him. And this is a card that really looks a lot like those T206s. Very colorful, small tobacco-sized issue, and just different than I think what people think when they think of hockey cards. So super cool. The other thing too that's underrated about this card is that this PSA 4 is actually fairly high grade for the issue. They're very condition sensitive. They're most often found in 1s, 1.5s, or 2s, and not many exist in 5 or higher. So a 4 is really, it would be mid-grade for a lot of cards. It's really high grade for the Vezina.
Yeah, absolutely. So for these types of pre-war hockey, is it just, as you mentioned, there's just not nearly as many sets as there were in baseball. So when you do find them, they're pretty rare.
Without a doubt. Yeah. So you've got the hockey cards. They also have some cards of lacrosse players. Lacrosse and hockey kind of interchanged seasons back in the day. There's some postcard sets. There's a great Sweet Cap postcard set of hockey players from the same era. So they weren't non-existent, but the supply is far, far less than baseball cards of the era. PSA, for context, has graded over 300,000 T206 baseball cards,
Wow.
I think. And, the number of Vesnas out there might be small double digits.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Just, very scarce. Speaking of scarce in this grade, 61 Fleer Wilt rookie card. Beautiful, beautiful card. The centering on this one just stands out immediately when I look at this one.
Yeah. So great centering. Also, I hate to keep harping on it, but print quality, the quality control back in the day was not what we had come to expect today. And you see that area that you're zooming over right now, you'd get a lot of print dots. You'd get a lot of fish eyes. This one's really clean. The registration really solid around his image, and it just looks pack fresh. And I've opened a pack of 61 Fleer basketball cards in my day, and I can tell you they don't all come out looking like this. So this is really cool, well centered, not perfect, but well centered. And in an 8, it's an iconic basketball card.
Absolutely. Wow. Where was the bid at that one? It's at 17,000.
Yeah.
I need to start selling stuff.
I know a guy.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we're going modern now. Now we're going to modern. We got the biggie. 2000 playoff contenders, Tom Brady in a BGS 9. These are, of course, numbered to 100. It's got the 10 auto grade. Man, beautiful.
Yeah, this is a great card. People may or may not know that back in my early days in the hobby, I worked at SGC as the grading company, SGC. And this is a card that sticks out in my mind as having come through the door, really stopping me in my tracks. Brady, obviously, in many people's eyes, the GOAT when it comes to football. And I just love the design of this. I love the ticket on the side. I love the signature. I love the shadow image in the back. I think it's got a lot of great design qualities. And then for Brady, it's become his best rookie card, arguably. And so this, high grade, 9 card grade, 10 autograph grade. You can see 21 bids already, $20,000. And this is one that we expect will see a lot of activity in the next 10 days.
Are you all seeing more and more of these come through? I mean, it's only numbered to 100, but I'd feel like, they've come through circulation, at least over the last few years, just with all the price increases. Have you seen a slowdown, maybe like these types of cards finding an end home?
Well, I think that these Brady playoff contenders are kind of a forever card for a lot of people. I think that they, people like to go after the iconic players and their best rookie cards. And I think this fits the bill for Brady. Maybe some other people would disagree, but I think that this is the one. And so they don't come up all too often. They're not rare, but they do come up from time to time.
Absolutely. It's funny. Now we go to his childhood hero.
Yeah.
It is Joe Montana, 81 tops, PSA 10. What a monster. This is one that I have to have at some point. Of course, it's not cheap, but this is such a great card.
Yeah, awesome card. And, not all 10s are created equal. This one, I think you can go over with a pretty fine tooth comb and find that it's all there. It's got great centering. Again, print quality, the theme of the night. These come all sorts of different ways. This one at $31,000, 17 bids. I love this card. It really symbolizes the 80s for a lot of collectors. I feel like there's a lot of people in the market right now that remember opening this out of packs, Jerry Rice, Michael Jordan rookies, Ken Griffey upper decks. So this is one of those iconic cards of the 80s that I think will be really good long-term buy and hold potentially. Yeah.
It's like, the odds of these coming out and that pop going up over time, it just hasn't shown that that's happened. And you think too, over the last few years, if people were going to grade these, the raw copies, they would grade, they would have done it. Not to say that they won't continue grading these 5-10 years down the road, but it's not a super rare card. So, to think the tens are gonna, there's gonna be 1,000 of them one day. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, as somebody that has submitted tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cards in his lifetime, I think people underestimate how tough vintage or semi-vintage tens are. These 81 tops, they come on a finicky stock. They can chip very easily. I've seen it happen a million times, and we've submitted cards that we think are all there, and they get an 8 or an 8.5 or a 9. And I like to think we know what we're doing. So I agree with you. The pop won't stop where it is, but I don't see it going up dramatically.
Yes, agreed, for sure. We'll stay on the football train. This is such a classic.
Yeah.
1933 Sports Kings, red Grange, and such a high grade for this card. I remember I saw a couple of these at the National that were like ones.
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't come up in this grade. So Sport Kings, great set, 33. Baseball, golf, basketball, football, hockey, dog sledders, you name it. A lot of variation, which makes it a very popular set across all areas of the hobby. This Grange card is one that I like a lot because I just look at it and I think rough and tumble football. I mean, you look at his helmet, you think about what the guys are wearing today, and this guy's got a sweater on and something to just keep his ears warm, So I love the card. And when it comes to the grade, I mean, you look at the centering, you look at the corners are all there. No creases, no wrinkles, nothing major going on. Really defines an 8.
Do you happen to know for this one if it was a raw copy that came out of a collection, that was just graded, or was it one that had been graded a while ago? It's not an old slab or not an old label,
right?
But just curious if you happen to know.
Yeah, so we didn't get this one graded. When it was graded, I don't know, but I wish we could take credit for this one. But it came to us as is.
Okay. Interesting. I love that card.
Yeah, it's dynamite. That whole set. I mean, honestly, if you go back there, I don't think there's a bad card in that set. You've got Ruth, you've got Cobb, you've got Walter Hagen, Gene Sarazen, you name it.
So this is a really unique item, and I think you guys had this at the National at the booth.
Yeah.
It's a Baltimore Colts championship ring presented by a team executive. Now, a team executive had it.
Yeah, so similar to what they would do today, the players obviously get a ring, and then high-level executives, employees, ownership also get rings. So this was presented to a team executive of the Baltimore Colts, and this was the NFL championship before there was the Super Bowl. And I think if you look at it, you see one nice diamond in the middle, maybe 2 stones flanking it. And you think about what the Patriots or the Chiefs are walking around with today. So this is a very understated ring, but iconic in terms of what it was awarded for. Greatest game ever played, Baltimore Colts, 58 NFL championship. This one has a reserve on it because of how rare it is. Our consignor doesn't want to give it up for nothing, but I can't remember the last one that came up. There have been 1 or 2 other ones, but it's been a very long time.
Yeah, that's such a unique piece. Do you get a lot of other Super Bowl rings? I mean, I'm sure you do get some, but are there, is that something that pops up every auction, or is it like every few catalog auctions?
Yeah, so not every auction, but they do come up from time to time. This auction, we have some other jewelry, hardware. We have some World Series rings from the 90s from the Braves organization. We have actually a super cool 1921 John McGraw pendant awarded for the first Subway Series. Obviously, they didn't call it the Subway Series back then, but Giants come out victorious, and we have the pendant and the pocket watch that they issued.
So this is one of my favorite piece in the whole set. And this was, or in the whole lot that you guys offer, this was at the National. I saw this up close and personal. The one thing and I know this is going to sound ignorant, but you always think about photos on cards, and you guys were kind of explaining that it was all artists and paintings that these cards were based off of going back. And so this is an example of original artwork for the 53 top set. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, so 53 Tops is actually known and regarded for its artwork in the hobby. You had sets from that era that were based off photographs. We've sold the the photograph used for Yogi Berra's 1950 Bowman, or the photograph used for Jackie Robinson's Bowman card. Each one of these artworks, of which there are 25, hand painted and saved as is in the collection of the family of one of the co-founders of Topps. So 70 years have gone by. The family pulled this out, wanted to share it with the hobby, the collecting world. Again, one of our phenomenal collector consignor stories that's on our website. And you've got three Hall of Famers here: Yogi Berra, Red Schoendienst, Phil Rizzuto. And just if you zoom in, the detail, the artwork, it's really incredible.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring up. There's Yogi.
Yeah, and then Rizzuto is down in the fourth row, second from the right. Other right. Maybe we're looking at it different ways.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
And then Shane.
I thought he was a Yankee.
Yeah, Schoendienst is up on the next row up, all the way to the other side. He's a Cardinal. And then you got Dom DiMaggio on this. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys who, in their own right, are good players, but just really an amazing piece.
Yeah, original artwork is just so, I feel like, especially when it comes to cards, it's rare. Now you have kind of type 1 photos. Yeah, you have type 1 photos, and then for this you have, actual artwork, which I think is just incredible. Do you know, do you know if they have other ones of this? Yeah, it makes me think, like, do they have a whole, room full of these?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of them probably are destroyed, unfortunately, but maybe about 11 years ago, we sold the collection of Cy Berger. And a lot of people call Cy the grandfather of the baseball card. And he had dozens of these original artworks, so they do exist. Back in the 80s, there was a big Topps auction where they sold the artwork for the Mays card, and they sold the artwork for the Mantle card. So they do exist. But I was just going to say, what's really funny is we had, or cool, not funny, but what's really cool is we had Dick Perez at our booth at the National. So Dick Perez, as many people know, Perez Steel postcards and the Donruss Diamond Kings.
Yeah, Diamond Kings.
He's walking through our whole booth, and he stops and he looks at this, and he just marvels at it. And so it was really cool to see somebody that's got this artist's eye really hone in on this and say, oh my God, they don't do it like this anymore. So that was really special.
Yeah, because the Diamond Kings cards of, I think, to the late 80s, early 90s, they kind of do have that same feel, that same kind of portrait feel as what those cards do.
Without a doubt, Dick Perez and his artwork is a real throwback. He's painted every living Hall of Famer. We actually have in this auction 13 of his artworks, one of which Roberto Clemente is going to go to benefit the Roberto Clemente Foundation. So yeah, artwork is just phenomenal in any form.
All right, another really unique item. It's funny when you hear about tickets and people are collecting tickets, you think about more modern tickets and the Michael Jordan Bulls game or Tom Brady football game. This is the original stuff.
This is where it all started, right? So 1903, first World Series. Don't think anybody could have predicted that it would be what it is today. And this is one of only 2 examples known from that inaugural championship. So you had the Boston Americans playing the Pittsburgh Pirates. We've only ever seen 3 tickets from the series in total. And this one is one of, if not the best looking examples. Very cool story on the back. Somebody says they were at the game. And when you just look at it, you think about how far tickets have come. But back in the day, this would get you into history.
That's funny. Yeah. I was at this game. That's great. Yeah, that's incredible. The original tickets. And now of course, everything is digital, and we might not ever see tickets again,
right,
in the same way. Definitely not like that.
Right. Well, it's interesting because when you see a perfect game thrown, or you see a no-hitter, or even a debut, there's this big frenzy. Does any hard copy ticket exist?
Yeah.
And the answer is increasingly becoming no.
Yeah. Unreal. All right. So we're on the last item, and this is a biggie. Lot number 2, the photo matched 1922-24 Babe Ruth Yankees game used bat.
Yeah. This is another one that was hiding in plain sight for decades. Very exciting, perfect 10 from PSA DNA. And we went through, on behalf of our consignor, the photo matching process. Resolution photo matching was able to pinpoint this bat to a photograph of Babe Ruth from a game in October of 1923 in which he hit a home run. So
wow.
this is a tremendous bat, great condition, great story, great photo match. One that we're really, really excited about. And you can see it's already $215,000 with 10 days to go.
Now, do they grade these? Is it the same as a card for bats? I'm definitely way of a novice on this. Is it 1 to 10 on a bat?
Yeah, so it is a 10-point scale. You don't really see too many lower than a 5. I think if it's going to grade low, people would just take an authentic. Standards are open to interpretation. You know, they're not as rigid as a card because there's very few bats sometimes, and you're going with your best information. But this one's all there.
Yeah, that's a great piece. Wow. Wow. Well, we have reached the end. There's obviously way more. Definitely go on to Robert Edward Auctions website, check it out, guys. It's endless. You know, you guys do such a great job, especially these catalog auctions. You know, we did the April catalog auction. Now we're July, August. I mean, just incredible, Brian.
No, I appreciate it. And yeah, for anybody that's not familiar with us, we've got almost 3,000 lots in this auction. We have monthly auctions. If you want to try your hand at something, everything starts at $10 in those auctions. But yeah, robertedwardauctions.com, check us out, sign up to bid. We have a full color catalog that you can take and look at. I think you'll be very intrigued. And if you're not even a buyer, you'll learn something going to our website.
How much lead time, if somebody watching wants to consign, you know, how much time does it take to actually speak to you, get the item to you, you know, get the photos and everything, you know, to get everything up?
Yeah, so I mean, the actual consignment process can be done very quickly. You send us an email, we give you our thoughts on value, we tell you where we would slot it in our auction calendar. Depending on when you reach out to us, if you reach out to us now and you want to be in a catalog auction, our next catalog launches in November. If you want to be in one of our online monthly auctions, that launches just after Labor Day. Right now, we're in the kind of the longest window of our cycle. But if you get us September through June, we've got auctions every 3 or 4 weeks.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Brian, thanks very much for joining. This was fun as always. I'm excited to have you back on, and we'll talk through another auction. But guys, thank you very much for joining us here tonight, and we will catch up with you later.
Thanks.